Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles, your favorite true crime podcast. I am Donnie, and with me is a man that wants everyone to know that it's always funny until someone gets hurt. Then it's just hilarious. It's Dale.
It's a real knee slapper then.
It is, ain't it? What's going on today, dude?
You know it, same old, same old.
Same old, same old. Well, we've got to put that on the shirt.
We do.
Yeah, you need to work on that.
All right.
Yeah,
I get to work. We ain't had a new design in a while now. I've been thinking about that for the last couple weeks.
Well, we're going to give you the same old, same old.
Get it going. We
got a good case this week. You got anybody you want to talk about? Anybody you want to mention before we get going?
We ain't got no new podcast today. I mean, new Apple 5-star reviews. How about we thank our loyal gatekeeper? How about that?
Let's give our gatekeeper a big old shout out.
So we want a big shout out to Rich Adams. We appreciate everything you do for us, man. Keeping the screen clean, if you will.
Yeah, people posting on our socials, and he goes in there and cleans that stuff out.
Right. Now, we do encourage you to go onto the fan page and post stuff. Now, it'll say it has to be okay, but there is a reason for that. We had some stuff from people who weren't really fans that were just jumping in there, and they were posting a bunch of lewd stuff, so we had to put it on where everything has to be okayed, but that don't mean we don't want you to post stuff.
Yeah, please post. I mean, we had to go to that extreme to do that, but
yeah, I didn't want to do it, but it was way too much stuff was having to be taken down.
There's some sick people out there that wants to post some
right. We didn't want to lose our page.
Yeah, so just a bunch of crap out there. So we had to do it, but that's the way it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But we still love you.
Yep. And
so thanks a lot, Rich. We appreciate everything you do.
Yeah,
brother.
We love you, man. And also, if anybody wants to go to the store page, get them something cool to wear.
Yeah, it's getting cool, man. Yeah, it's about fair weather.
Yeah, fall's coming in.
Of course, it's 100 degrees today, but next week it's going to be in the 70s.
Yeah, low in the 50s next week.
Carolina weather.
Yeah. Get you a T-shirt, get you a hoodie, get you something to wear, get you a hat.
Yeah, you get a T-shirt for this week and a hoodie for next week.
Yeah. And remind people, too, they can go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating review, write something in that box, and we will give you a shout-out.
We appreciate it. It means a lot.
We appreciate a whole big bunch, y'all.
That's right.
We really do. We appreciate all of our listeners.
All right, quit chattering. Let's roll it.
Well, other than that, Dale, we're going to get going on this episode because he told me to quit chatting.
That's right.
But we're going to Granby, Colorado on this episode, man.
Whereabouts is that?
That is in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, little town of Granby. The story centers around a guy that lived there, and the date of this event we're talking about is June the 4th, 2004.
Well, actually, he lived in Grand Lake.
Yeah, it's just right near there.
Yeah, about 16 miles.
Yeah, but he had a business there in Granby,
yes,
Colorado. And the guy we're talking about, his name is Marvin Heemeyer.
Correct.
And just a little bit of background on Marvin Heemeyer. His full name was Marvin John Heemeyer, and he was born on October the 28th, 1951, in Castlewood, South Dakota.
On a dairy farm.
Yeah, and he was a U.S. Air Force veteran. He was a welder, and he had a lot of hobbies he did. And
he was a master welder.
He was a very good welder. People said he was top-notch.
Yes.
In what he did. But Marv Heemeyer, he moved to Grand Lake, Colorado. It was about 16 miles away from Granby. And he said he didn't have any relatives in the area, but he was stationed there in Colorado when he was in the Air Force, and he just loved it.
Right. Well, his dad, he grew up on the farm, and he didn't really like living in South Dakota or whatever, so his dad told him basically join the military is the way to get out of here if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when he joined the Air Force. He was stationed in Colorado, and once he got there, he really loved it, so he decided to buy and stay there when he got out of the Air Force.
Yeah, fell in love with the area.
Yeah.
And
he's a big-time snowmobiler, man.
Yeah, he loves snowmobiling. When they had the Thursday clubs, what they called it.
Right.
And every Thursday they would go snowmobiling during the snow months.
Right. And when he wanted to go, he could go whenever he wanted. There was times he'd go 4 or 5 times a week, but the big thing was Thursdays.
Yeah, he had his own business, so he could just close up when he wanted to and go.
Yeah, apparently he was doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, but when Marv moved to Granby, he was in strong of a gambling legalization.
Well, it came up while he was there, and yes, he was definitely trying to push it.
Yeah, he was wanting gambling there.
Right.
But the townspeople and everybody around, they were against this.
Yeah. Well, there was a place, not far from there that come up, and they were doing well. The economy was booming. They were making money there, and him being the businessman, and he's the man that wants that dollar, he was all for it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really worry about what it was going to do to this small community.
Yep.
I mean, it's like only 2,000 people lived here in Granby.
Yeah, that's right. So in 1992, Marv, when he purchased 2 acres of land, and he got this land for $42,000 at an auction.
Right.
And he had plans where he was going to lease this property to a friend who was wanting to build a building for an auto repair shop on the site.
Yeah, so the guy was wanting one in this area, and so Marv started looking around, and he found this place, and he looked at it, and they was for sale. Had been for sale for a couple of years, but they was wanting over $100,000 for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he found out it was going to be under a FDIC auction.
Yeah.
So they went to check it out, and then he actually got to scoop it up for $42,000.
Yeah, this is in '92, and this is when all the bank failures were going on.
All the savings and loans.
Yes, and that's when he was able to purchase this property for $42,000.
Yes.
And when he was at this auction, there was a guy there by the name of Cody Dochev.
Yes.
And his family had owned this property previously.
Correct.
And Marv, he claimed at the time that Cody had berated him several minutes after this auction was over with.
Yeah, well, now from Marv's side, basically they said that the Cody, you said they had owned this before, but they had sold it to a guy who had started a business and then lost his business in this FDIC thing or whatever. So they weren't actually the last owners of the property.
Yeah.
But they had property adjoining this, so they wanted to buy this piece of property.
Yeah.
When Marv got to looking into it, he asked these realtors he were talking to if the previous owners were interested in this, because he didn't want to get in no kind of bidding war. And they told him they didn't think so. So when they went to the thing, the bidding started at $20,000, and he bidded, and then right off the bat they started bidding up front.
Yeah.
So he ended up buying it for $42,000 because Cody and the guy he was with they couldn't go over $40,000.
That's right.
So he ended up getting it for a little bit more than that.
Yeah. So that they had it's reported they had some kind of argument after the
one said
auction.
They did, one said they did.
Yeah.
They was supposedly Cody come up to him and asked him who the hell he thought he was buying this property and what's he going to do. Basically he said he was really a big a-hole is what he said.
Yeah.
But Cody claims he don't remember even talking to him at the auction.
But this property that Marv bought for $42,000, it had a very basic sewage storage solution, and it was actually just a buried cement mixer.
Yeah, like on the one off a truck, not the one you see out in the yard. So it had like the big round barrel like it's on the back of a cement delivery truck.
It was
buried in the ground.
Yeah.
So it's a makeshift septic tank basically.
That's what it was. Yeah, but it was going to cost a lot to update this sewer system, which
Right.
was really going to double the $42,000 that Marv paid for this property.
And the thing was, they also said that the EPA was talking about there was some oil and some stuff out there that was going to have to be cleaned up before they could use this. And when they started giving them the numbers, the fella that Marv had bought this building with intentions of leasing to backed out.
Yeah.
So now he's just the owner of the building, and he's not going to get any income off of it. So he talked to the guy, and they said, well, we can annex you in to get you into the sewage, and it won't be a problem. So then he goes down to City Hall and gets on there to put it on the docket to get his building annexed. Well, once he do that, they let him know that it was going to be a pretty big deal to run these lines to the existing lines. It was going to cost him a lot of money.
Yes, it was.
Right. So it ended up was going to cost him almost double what he paid for it just to get hooked up. So he's like, well, this is crazy. I'll just keep using what I've got. And which at the time, it was legal to do what he was doing.
Yeah. But once he was annexed in, that's when trouble started.
Right.
Yeah.
And they basically annexed him in to kind of do him a favor to get it going on, but he couldn't, join at all before then.
Mm-hmm.
So they's like, well, he didn't say he didn't want to do it when he left, so let's go ahead and do it and let him in, and then we'll figure out how to get him connected.
Yeah, and he was going to have to actually get an easement across some of the Dochev property
Right.
to put this septic line in.
Right, which is something you know about, right?
Yeah, and when he went to the Dochevs, said, well, we'll give you an easement across our property to put these sewer lines in, but any legal problems we have, we want any charges dropped.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had a big rigmarole. This wasn't right now. This is like several times back and forth because, it was a couple of years they were wanting to build a big cement plant back behind this property. So Heemeyer, they came to him and they wanted to buy his business. Now he offered it to them the day of the auction. He said, because he was going to get $66,000 from the guy he was going to lease the building to.
Yeah.
So he told Cody that day at the auction, according to Marvin, that he told him that day, I will sell it to you right now for $66,000.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, hell, you only paid $42,000. He's like, well, you don't think I'm going to come up here and spend my money and my time and all this and not make nothing, but I'll sell it to you right now for that. So they said no, whatever. Anyway, so later, a couple of years, I'm thinking, When they come back again, they went up to ask him about buying the property. He said, okay, I'll take $250,000 for it. It's like, ooh, that's kind of steep. They went back and came back, and he's like, well, okay, maybe we can do that. Well, he said, well, now I've had it appraised. Now it's going to cost you $375.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, dang. So then they come back and said, listen, we got some money. We can give you $350. How's that? And he goes, well, this time I've had it appraised again, and now I'm wanting $450,000 for it.
So what he paid $42,000 for.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is just a couple years later.
Yeah. So there's a constant beef going on
Back and forth.
between Marv and Cody Dochev. I mean,
Correct.
it's back and forth, constant.
Yeah.
And they are not liking each other at all.
No, and Cody's son is the one going to go talk to Marv about this and bring him the numbers and stuff. It's not Cody himself.
Yeah.
He's like, I got to go take this back to Dad and see what he says.
And Marv, he had a lot of beef with the other people in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the newspaper guy, with the town hall. He had problems with people at the hardware store, the bank, everybody. He had a problem with everybody for something.
Yeah, if it didn't work out in his favor, he had a problem with it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And he didn't care to file a lawsuit, get a lawyer, do whatever he wanted to do. He was going to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
that
right.
was his plan anyway.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, after all this mess happened, Heemeyer, he did have a big public campaign against this concrete plant that they were going to try to build, and he thought he could get it stopped. He hired a lawyer, and this lawyer fed him all this stuff, and he ended up spending a ton of money trying to get this thing stopped and going back and forth to City Hall and to the clerks and having meetings and all this stuff. And he really thought he was going to get something done, but ended up him losing the lawsuit and spending over $50,000 to this lawyer that got all his money from him.
Yeah.
So now he's even more mad.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually he's like, the hell with it. I'm just going to shut it down. I'm selling my damn business. I'm done with this place. The hell with all y'all.
Yeah, I'm getting out.
Right. I'm done.
Yes.
I'm done. So he ended up selling his place to a trash management business, as far as way I follow it.
Yeah, it was just a trash management business.
Yeah, something to do with waste management. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, he sold that, and it was like, but out back he had built a big metal building that he had planning on have like boat storage and stuff, just to have a stream of income to where he could make it like a rental center,
Mm-hmm.
So he told the guy that he wanted to rent that building. I'll sell you my property if you'll lease me the building out here, and I want to use it for a little bit till I get some stuff done. And then, so I think he got a year lease on it. So he actually sold it to these fellas for $400,000. So he made $400,000.
Yeah.
And then he released out the little building behind him at the same time. And it said it wasn't like no time. This guy called them and got hooked up to the sewage. It's like it was really quick. So then he's even more pissed off but at this time, all the lines had been moved this many years later, and all the lines were live, and it wasn't like he had to go. It wasn't a big a deal at this point. And so I'm sure he was pissed off about that, because it didn't take long at all for them to get hooked up because they wouldn't let him operate the business until they got connected.
Yeah, and in Marv's mind, he thought everybody in town was against him.
Yes.
Everything he wanted to do, they were against him. They had a plot to stop anything he wanted to do as far as his business goes,
Yeah.
or anything he wanted to do.
Yeah, because he had a muffler shop in there. I
He
don't know if
did.
he said that or not.
Yeah, we said he was a welder and mufflers.
Yeah, he was a very successful guy. He was like the best, muffler guy around. He worked on everybody's snowmobiles. He built this special Marv bumper to go around snowmobiles, so when they go cruising, they could, go through the small trees and stuff, brush without damaging their sleds. That he built custom, using his muffler equipment. So he's a pretty neat guy as far as that goes. But all this stuff, but like you said, he's been stewing all these years.
Yeah, and the stuff we're talking about, it goes on for several years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think right before he sold the plant, they had come and give him like a $3,000 fine for not ever hooking up to.
Yeah, it was like $100 a day.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous like that. And then he wrote him a check to all you. What was it?
The liars and cheaters.
The liars and cheaters, down in the memo, is to the liars and cheaters department.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he filled it out wrong, so he had to go back.
Yeah.
They called him, he had to go back, and he got mad about that. So now you're down here bad mouthing me about this, but he'd filled the check out wrong on the amount line. So he had to fix that. So that was just another thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just constant. He feels like it's just constant gouging to him, even though it's just like a lot of it's in his head.
But everything's sold at his auction except a bulldozer.
Yeah, he sold I think some. He had some four-wheelers. I think he had some couple some snowmobiles, some couple cars, stuff like that, and equipment. So he sold everything except for his building didn't sell, which he sold to the trash people, and this giant bulldozer.
This bulldozer
he had bought at auction.
This bulldozer was a Komatsu D355A.
Correct.
Bulldozer. And he bought it for $16,000 at an auction.
At an auction, and then he had it listed for 35 or 38 or something on when he tried to sell it, and somebody offered him 20, but he wouldn't take it.
He actually bought this in California and had it shipped to
Right.
Granby, Colorado. And
Yeah, so he had more than that in it.
This
I'm
was
sure it
in-
wasn't cheap.
This was in July 2002.
Correct.
Yeah. So he had this bulldozer in his little building that he was renting.
Well, he had it set outside for a while and tried to sell it after the auction, and then when it started to become winter, he put it in the building.
Yeah, and it would barely fit in
Barely.
the building.
I think the top of the door was over 12 foot, and it fit by an inch or 2 inches on the top and 1 inch on each side to get in the door, which is amazing.
Yeah. It was a massive bulldozer.
Yes.
But he referred to this bulldozer as the MK tank, or Marv's Komatsu tank.
Well, that's what he turned it into this.
Yes.
This was his project.
Yeah, because he was in this building, and he was modifying this bulldozer.
In secret,
Yes, at night.
because he was only supposed to be using this building for storage. It wasn't for no business or no human can stay there or whatever you call that. And it wasn't to live in. It wasn't to this. It was just supposed to be storage. But and if you notice, he didn't sell none of his welding stuff in the auction. So that stuff was in there in that bulldozer.
Yeah,
Yeah. So he would sneak down there and work at nights working on this thing.
yeah, he would. And he was rigging up this bulldozer, and he was fitting it with some makeshift armor plating. Yeah.
He had to bring in a lift to lift these plates up.
Yeah, and they were big armor plating he was putting on these things, and like double walling it, and inside these double walls he was filling with concrete,
Yes.
and he was making like a shell for this bulldozer,
Yes.
almost making a tank out of it.
That's what he did make.
Yeah.
I mean, you could not see the operator once he was done what he's doing. He covered this thing top. He covered the engine. He plated it. It was like 3/8 inch thick plate. He covered it, and then he made another shell, like you said, on the outside with 1/2 inch steel, and then filled all the gaps with concrete.
Yeah,
Carried it up bucket by bucket up there, and then once he got this thing built,
armored over.
I mean, completely, even the top, everything. He had everything covered. You couldn't get to nothing. He even had cameras on outside so he could see where he was going.
Yeah,
And
with monitors inside.
and then once he done that, he covered the whole thing in grease.
Yeah, make it slick.
Yeah, so nobody could climb up on it.
Yeah. But like you said, he had these video cameras mounted to the outside of it, and these cameras were covered in bulletproof glass.
Yes,
Yeah,
he thought of everything.
he did.
Even though he had things of compressed air inside, so when if stuff got in front of his cameras or too much stuff, he could turn them on to jets and blow stuff out
Yeah.
to keep it clean.
And we're going to get into why he done this.
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy. And he had onboard fans and air conditioner inside to keep him cool while he was inside this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he had made 3 gun ports, and they were fitted for a 50 caliber rifle.
Serious business.
Yeah. A 308 caliber semi-automatic rifle and a 22 caliber rifle.
Yes.
All fitted with a 1/2 inch steel plate. Yeah, he wasn't messing around.
Right. So it was a tank without the giant gun on the front, basically.
Yeah, it just still had the blade on the front.
Oh yeah, and it was huge. It was like almost as tall as you are. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, so all this stuff going on with Marv, with him and the townspeople and the town hall, him thinking everybody was against him and trying to shut him down. This finally come to a head.
Yeah. Well, he got to being by himself a lot. You know, before building this thing, he went home and he was in his hot tub and he just got thinking. He's thinking that God's telling him to do this.
Yeah,
These people need to be taught a lesson, and he's the one to do it.
yeah,
He thinks that I've had it good my whole life. Maybe I got my reward first, but now it's time for me to carry my cross. I got to
That's
do
what
this,
he's thinking.
and that's why he's doing this.
yeah,
And everything that happened, he would say, "Well, I would have got caught here. I never got caught." Like we said, he was sneaking, in that building. When that company got insurance, the insurance company representatives had to come out there and look around in this building. And he had that thing covered up in tarps and stuff, and they come out there and look around, ask him why he had that crane, that big lift out there, and he told them he was using it for some kind of air conditioning thing that the college was working on to work on these big bulldozers. And that's why it's in here, and they bought the whole thing. And he's like, "Well, they didn't catch me here, so it's still my mission."
yeah. God's wanting me to do this.
Still want me to do it, yeah.
Yeah. So in his mind, God is wanting him to take this bulldozer and do some stuff.
Yeah, every time he didn't get called or everything, something went his way or something just happened to be the right way, he took that as a sign to keep going.
So on June the 4th of 2004, this was around 2:15 in the afternoon.
Right.
Marv, he cranked up that bulldozer.
Well, he climbed in that sucker. He said he had a ladder. He would climb up there, and he got in there, kicked the ladder off, got in, and pulled down this hatch. And from the outside, you couldn't tell it was a hatch. Like I said, he was a master welder. He had cut this thing to where when he shut it, you couldn't hardly even see the seams. Pulled it down.
It was that
and latched
precise.
it. Yes. Latched in. He's locked in. There ain't no getting in.
Yeah. And inside, you know, we talked about this, and you even read where he had food in there he could eat.
Yeah, he took him a ammo box with sandwiches in it. He had some Slim Fast. He had water, and then he had like fan in there to keep him cool. Like I said, those 5 video cameras. He had a couple screens in there, and he was ready to go.
Yeah. So at 2:15 in the afternoon on June the 4th, 2004,
And once he shut that hatch, it's on.
he cranked that thing up.
Yep.
And that thing roared up, and he busted out of the little building he
Yeah,
was
it was
in.
too big now for the door, so he just drove right through the wall of the building.
Tore the door out to get out.
Yep.
Yeah. Of this massive bulldozer. Yeah.
Yeah, just drove right through the wall and headed over to the concrete place from next door.
Yep.
Where Cody Docheff's business was.
Yep. And he destroyed the town.
Yes.
He did. And, you know, we've been talking about what happened in Granby and everything, but today we've got a special guest on the show, Dale.
Yes, we do.
And he can bring some more light to what we've been talking about.
Right. We can keep going like we're going, but this is kind of thing. But this is one of the things we like to do. If we can find somebody that was on the ground right there and in the situation and is willing to talk to us, we're more than glad to get their perspective because they were there.
Yep. But today on the show, not only do we have a guy, but we have the guy.
That's right.
Yeah. He lived through this.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Right there, right in the road.
Oh, yeah, right there. He is the former editor and publisher of the Sky High News there in Granby, Colorado. He's been a reporter for many, many years.
28 years or more.
Oh, yeah, and he's won numerous awards for his publications. And also, he's an accomplished jazz drummer, which puts him up a notch in my book.
Yeah, I knew you was going to get excited about that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But we're going to get into a little bit more about him, but we want to introduce Patrick Brower to the show. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for reaching out to me, you guys. I always appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you because we got fascinated with the Killdozer story and Marv Heemeyer and reached out to you, and man, this is just great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I was happening to going through something and a YouTube video popped up and there was some guy named Whistling Diesel or something. Anyway, he pulled a bulldozer through your town. He had bought or something, and he was going around asking people, this is, not long ago, I'm assuming, and he was asking people about the story and stuff, and everybody said they needed to talk to you. You wrote the book. I'm like, So somewhere in the video, I think you popped up and even maybe gave him a book or something. So then I went from there to searching you, and then I found the documentary, and then I watched it. And I sent that to Donnie, and he said, man, we need to do this. So then I went from there, and then I found the book. So then I went through the book twice. So, yeah, this is exciting for me.
Well, it's always good to know at least one person has read the book, so thank you.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about you before we get going.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've lived here in Granby, Colorado since 1979. Granby's a small town, a little over 2,000 people. It's a mountain, kind of rural resort town. It's got ski areas, and Rocky Mountain National Park is nearby. So we sit at about 8,000 feet.
Wow.
It's a great place to be, and I ran the newspapers, was part owner for 28 years, and then we sold in 2007. And since then, I wrote the book, and I also do economic development consulting, and I play music here and there.
Wow. Like I said, that's a notch in my book right there for you. Yeah, we love some music, no doubt. How did you get going into the newspaper business? What did you have a background on that?
Well, I went to the University of Virginia, and I was American Studies major, which means I studied history, American history and American literature. And I wanted a job that had something to do with writing, so I went into journalism, took a beginner-level job here at a paper up here in the mountains, and just worked my way up.
So let's get into the day of June 4th, 2004. What was that day like for you just starting out? I mean, what were you doing that day?
June 4th was a Friday, and of course everybody says that these days of spectacular events start normally, and this one did. But I was sitting in the office doing some work. Most of my staff was there. We have an office right here on Main Street in Granby, which is also a U.S. Highway 40. And we got a strange phone call that was telling us to evacuate the office, that there was a disturbance and everybody should leave and go to the east of town. And that sort of got our attention. And then somebody came in and said, there's a guy going nuts in a bulldozer down by the batch plant, and you guys know what's going on. And we, of course, that was the first we'd heard of it. This was about 2:45 in the afternoon on that Friday. So everybody in the office got freaked out and left. It was just, I was just left there with another writer and editor, Harry Williamson. But by that time, sheriff's deputies were coming into the office using the phone and basically telling us to leave. But we said, we're not leaving. We're going to cover with this thing, whatever it is. We didn't really know exactly what was going on at this point. In fact, neither did law enforcement, because at first they were telling everybody to hunker down in their houses because they'd heard this was a guy shooting guns and stuff, which he was.
Right.
But then they changed their message and said, no, don't hunker down, get out of your house because he's knocking down buildings.
Wow.
So they had to quickly change their message to a lot of people, and that's when people started evacuating rather than staying in their houses safe from rounds from his rifles. So I have to say the police did a great job of getting people out of town and evacuating the town.
So that was that reverse 911 call they had made?
Yeah, it was that, and then they did some select calls to people that they knew might have been targets or the subject of the ire of Heemeyer. They weren't saying it was Heemeyer yet, but they pretty well knew, but they weren't publicly saying it.
Right.
So he hit the cement plant first, there where Cody Dochev was. And
right. So he burst out of this steel building work shed that he actually used to own, and then he leased back from the person who bought his property.
Mm-hmm.
He burst out of that and turned around and destroyed a concrete forming building, which was a great big concrete building where they made the huge forms. And then he went over and started trying to destroy the concrete batch plant. And on his way to the batch plant is when people started to try to resist him. People were slamming steel into the treads. Cody actually walked up and shot at it with a pistol that he got from one of his workers that didn't do a thing. And then Cody ran off and got his loader and tried to start stopping it by then. But by then Marv was already knocking down corners of the building.
Wow.
State trooper drove up, Dave Batura, and as he was walking toward the dozer, Marv started shooting at him with 50 caliber. And then Marv started shooting at Cody, who was slamming into the side of the Killdozer, and put 9 holes in the bed of the bucket on the front end loader. Right. It's a miracle Cody wasn't killed. But,
yeah.
He wasn't.
Yeah, those 50 cals were going through that thing, weren't they?
It's amazing. Marv had either some sort of armor piercing or extremely durable round to be doing that. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Do you think Marv was trying to kill or just trying to get attention, trying to keep people away from him?
Well, in my opinion, Marv was initially just trying to keep people away, but, he shot at the state trooper without really being provoked. Dave was just walking over toward the dozer. He was provoked by Cody, but so some people will say, he was just trying to defend himself. But, if you shoot a firearm in my direction, I think you're trying to kill me.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what you have to assume.
I agree totally.
And after that, he also fired at another sheriff's deputy, fired 2 times at him with his 30 caliber, and then he fired again with the 50 at some state troopers that were hiding behind concrete barriers. So, I think he was trying to, I'll put it this way, he certainly didn't care if he killed somebody.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that today, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I was kind of like on the fence, like, well, I think he was just trying to keep them from jumping on board or whatever. But then again, we looked at each other and said, but he was shooting at them. I mean, so really, what does it matter in the long run? It's just like you said, he's shooting there. It didn't like it really mattered to him at this point.
And you guys should know that was and is still a item of an area of debate. But it got so bad, within the 2 weeks after the event that the sheriff's department actually issued a press release trying to clarify what they saw as the definite violent intent of Heemeyer. Because a lot of people were saying, oh, he's just a nice guy. All they wanted to do was destroy property. And, they didn't believe that. I don't believe that. It's a miracle that nobody was killed by either the falling buildings or by his firearms.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he could have mounted them way lower, if he was really trying to take people out. Or as far as that goes, he could have just run through town with a gun. But either way, it comes out the same difference. You're still shooting a gun at somebody and knocking buildings over on people you don't even know if they're in there or not. So in the end, it really doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want some minutia on it, he did have on the right side of the dozer, he had a Ruger Mini, which is a early version of a semi-automatic relatively short rifle, and that would have been the one with which he could have easily gotten people because it had a lot of clearance and range all around. And but that barrel got bent early in the rampage, probably at the batch plant, and there was a spent round in the barrel. But it was disabled early when portions of the batch plant fell down on the dozer.
Well, that's good. I didn't know that.
So when he was attacking the cement plant, Cody Dochev was coming out saying it was Marv Heemeyer, but nobody really knew it was him for sure, though, did they?
Even at first, there's one quote from Cody and the police that maybe it's a motorized, sort of randomly powered thing, but then they realized it was Marv because of the building it came from.
Okay.
Right.
Then it didn't take a genius to figure out, Cody and Marv and Cody had started to have differences in the recent history. That's when Cody and they admitted that it was Marv. Within 45 minutes, the police were in his house up in Grand Lake, going through stuff, trying to see what was going on. So they knew pretty quickly.
Oh, speaking of that, do you know if the stuff that was in the Subaru they kept talking about in his tapes, I guess the cops got that and the computer and all his papers and stuff?
Wow, you're talking about a portion of the tape that I'm not familiar with. In a Subaru, in his yard?
Yeah.
There might have been stuff up at his house that he was referring to.
Right. Yeah, probably was. I think he was just like, he had printed out a bunch of stuff, a bunch of files, and had them stashed in his Subaru or somewhere. But I was just wondering what was the outcome of that, if I ever found it.
Well, I'm going to have to find out more about that because I don't remember hearing anything about a Subaru up there.
Yeah.
They did find a lot of stuff up at his house.
Yeah. So how soon after he hit the cement plant did he come to the newspaper office where you were at?
Well, he hit the batch plant, turned around, ran over a sheriff's vehicle, Ford Explorer, smashed it, and then went up Main Street, hit Mountain Parks Electric, which is our local utility, smashed up the front of that building. And that was when Glenn Traynor, the undersheriff, was riding on top of the dozer, trying to figure out how to get around inside or to stop it.
That's brave.
So he risked his life pretty majorly doing that. He was able to get up there, even though it was greased down. He figured out a way to get up on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, they smashed up Maple Street Builders construction building. And then he went to the town hall, smashed that up, did a really good job of that. And then hit the Colorado Savings Bank, smashed up the southeast corner of that, and then he went down Main Street. So about a half hour later, maybe 45 minutes later, he hit the newspaper.
So when he was coming toward your direction, did they sort of figured out where he was going and what he was going to hit. Did you think in your mind that he was coming to the newspaper office? Or
I didn't think so, but I was told that I should get home real quick, that I was on his list.
Oh.
And nobody knew what they're talking about with the list, but they found lists up at his house in Grand Lake. And I actually made his list twice. But so what happened was he was coming down Main Street, and I actually took a photo of him coming down Main Street, and then we went in the office hoping he'd just drive by, but he didn't. He took a sharp right turn and just started to destroy the building.
Wow.
So I quickly exited, took a few more photos, and ran home. And they had called my house, which is not too far from the newspaper, about 1/8 of a mile. And my wife was pregnant at the time, and they told her to, they said evacuate quickly, get away. So we left town. But I ran home from the office as he was destroying it.
Wow.
It was mayhem. It was crazy.
yeah,
I mean, the building was literally falling down around me as we were running out the back.
that is insane.
Patrick, for scale, how big was this thing? I mean, you saw it right there, right in front of it. It's hard to tell on TV, but I know it was huge because it busted out of a building.
Yeah, it's a massive bulldozer. With all the armor on it and concrete, it weighed about, they figured 85 tons.
Wow.
Without the armor and stuff, it's about a 60-ton, 65-ton bulldozer. It's the equivalent of a big D9. And when the Whistling Diesel guy came through town, he had one mounted on his trailer.
Right.
And, I had forgotten how big the thing was. When you walk up to it, the blade's higher than you are.
Wow.
I mean, it's just a massive bulldozer.
That is.
I can't imagine. The thing just had to shake the ground when it was coming. It
It
weighed
did.
so
You
much.
could feel it as it was coming. You could feel the ground shaking. You could kind of feel the rumble from the treads hitting the asphalt and concrete. Yeah, no question about it.
Man, this just gives me chills. This is why we like to talk to people who were there, just because just watching it, you don't really get the scale of how much destruction, and I mean, it's just crazy.
So while this thing was coming through town, were people evacuating, or were people just standing by watching? What was it like?
Most of the people were evacuating, leaving, although there were some people kind of just standing around watching, but the police were telling them to get out of there because
He's shooting.
you could see that there were guns mounted in the bulldozer. But basically, it was a slow motion parade of a bunch of sheriff's deputies and state troopers trying to figure out how to stop this thing. They would be walking or jogging along next to it. Almost all of them had either rifles or pistols drawn, trying to figure out how to stop this thing. They shot the cameras. They shot at the portholes. They shot at the embouchures where the rifles were protruding, but nothing got in there. They could not penetrate the armor at all. Not even one guy had a 50 caliber rifle. It didn't do anything.
He had that thing sealed up tight.
Wow. He put a lot of thought in this thing. I'm telling you, that's what I was telling my wife earlier. She's like, yeah, he must have just got mad. I said, listen, he wasn't mad. He was been mad for a long time. I mean, he took over a year to build this thing, and it's not like he just got mad, went and jumped in and run downtown.
Yeah.
I mean,
this was took some planning and some forethought.
A lot, yeah.
And a lot of anger built up.
And he had plenty of chances to get out of this. When he sold his stuff, I mean, all these there was plenty of exits along this highway. And I think he knew it too, but in the end, he just, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't I don't see the hero thing here at all myself.
No. And Patrick, when I started looking into this story, I didn't really have an opinion one way or the other, and then I got to listen to more stuff, and I was like, dang, was Marvin the right of doing this? And then me and Dale talked back and forth, and I watched some more stuff, and I mean, now I'm just, man, this guy was just insane.
Well, if you get the quick version, then you're going, oh man, this guy was just pissed off and he'd had enough.
Yeah.
But when you look at go get the book. You get the book, you go, wait a minute. There's a whole lot of stuff that's not being told in all these podcasts and stuff, and that's exactly why I wanted Patrick to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys letting me talk about that. Look, he is a hero in a lot of people's minds, and if you were to hear the story told briefly, you would think, well, boy, the town must have done him wrong,
and that's what I thought.
People must have been mean to him, and just because of the outrageous nature of his act, you think, well, they must have done something outrageous to him. Now, look, he didn't get his way all the time, but who always beats City Hall? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize it, but the real core, I think, of his frustration was that he was unable to sell property he had bought to the Dochefs at really highly inflated prices, and they just kept refusing to buy at his price. And he told them if they didn't buy at his price, he was going to fight them the whole way. And he did fight him the whole way, but he didn't win.
But heck, even though when he jacked the price up, they agreed to a price. He jacked it up again. They made him an offer pretty close, and then he jacked it up again. So it was like he had two chances to triple his money right there. And I mean, I just don't get it. I don't know.
No, that's definitely true, and I confirmed it with not only the Dochefs, but because they wanted that property.
Yeah.
They used to own it a long time ago. Then they sold it to a business. That guy went under. Then it went to an FDIC auction. Marv bought it, and they wanted to buy it back. That's why they were at the auction. But Marv got it. They would have bought it for a reasonable price, but right from the beginning, Marv was jacking up the price too high for them to want to buy it. So I mean,
yeah, I mean he bought it for 42, and then he was going to sell it to them. They agreed for like I think 250,000. And then, and then he went back and he went, no, I had an appraisal, and he said, I want 375. So then they came back and said, how about 350? And then he said, no, 475. So it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it was that was an unfortunate part of the whole deal.
Yes.
And a lot of people think that the town didn't give him or took a sewer easement from him, and what happened was that the extreme high cost of him getting a legal sewer easement and tap, it just was prohibitive, and that made him angry. But it was the price, the sewer main was far away, but they didn't take it or block it or prevent him. He was just informed, and that wasn't the town, that was the sewer district. They just told him it's going to cost a lot of money, and that made him angry.
Right, yeah, sure, you can join, but you got to pay to connect. Sorry, that's the way it is.
Yeah. You got to be a citizen.
And they did annex him into the district. It's just he never paid to hook on. He never spent the money to hook on.
Yeah. So after Marv left the newspaper office where you were at, where did he go then? What was after that?
He went to the Thompson and Sons property. The Thompson family is a prominent family. Their father was the mayor of Granby, had been, and they owned property and an excavation company, and he went to property that they owned and knocked over trailers and equipment, smashed up buildings where they had renters, like the XL gas company up here, the utility, and then he went to their shop and did a lot of damage to their shop, and then he completely destroyed their house where Thelma Thompson, the widowed wife of the mayor, Dick Thompson, had been sleeping only 20 minutes before.
Wow. But
they evacuated her before he got there, so he destroyed all that property. And then when he was there, he got into a fight with a scraper, and it's a big machine that's used to scrape and move a lot of dirt. And the head of the county road and bridge division grabbed it and tried to stop Marv, but he didn't beat the guy. Marv immediately shut that thing down, gave it big flat tires, and that was the first fight with a scraper. And then there was another one later on after he shot at the gas plant. Mm-hmm. But so after he was at the Thompsons, he went back and sat for a few minutes. And so just the Thompsons, it was three different buildings. Mm. And then he stopped and went down to the independent propane batch plant, a great big bulk plant down there. Not a batch plant, a bulk plant. They had a lot of propane stored down there.
Yeah, mini tanks.
And he parked the bulldozer there and proceeded to shoot at tanks that were stored on the property there.
Yeah, propane tanks.
He shot his own armor in the process of doing that because he couldn't get a good angle at the tank, so he kept backing it up and it moved the armor up. And when he fired, and you can see it on video, it's real obvious. Mm-hmm. He hit his own armor, but he did manage to shoot over the tanks and hit one electrical transformer. And I think his intent was to puncture a hole in one of those gas tanks and then spark it into flames with sparks from the electrical transformer that he shot, because he hit that transformer twice because you can shoot into a tank of gas and it won't explode unless there's a spark.
Yeah.
So he had to get a spark going, and I think that's what he was doing. But he failed, luckily.
Yeah, luckily. That's what it looked like he was trying to me, too, yeah.
Did they determine how good of an aim he had out of that dozer?
Or was it just, it is what it is? Would they, well, I guess, can you move it around, or is it just locked into position?
No, he could move it because where he had the barrels, there was some room of range. But the problem is you couldn't shoot very low because the deck of the front of the back of the dozer, it got in the way.
Right.
So he couldn't shoot very low. And that's why he backed up and it moved up the scraper, and the armor on the scraper got in his way. And actually it was a hook. He had a big hook.
The big ripper on the back, yeah.
A ripper, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And he could shoot high, left and right, but he really couldn't shoot very low.
Huh. So he had some kind of aim then. It just wasn't...
Oh, yeah, he could look. See, he had hatches above each firearm.
Mm-hmm.
So he had the remote-mounted cameras. So he had, I think, 5 cameras mounted on it and 3 monitors inside. The cameras were all covered with Flexan, so they were theoretically bulletproof. And then he also had sliding ports above each firearm that he could slide open and look out. And there was Flexan in front of those, but he could look out and kind of see, and he could just by seeing where the rounds were hitting, maybe aim, sort of.
Right.
So he could see, sort of. I wouldn't say it was the greatest view.
Right. But he
yeah,
did have
could sort of
maneuverability, right. Yeah, and you were talking about, he couldn't shoot in his own armor and stuff. We're thinking about, for people who don't know, the sides of that thing from your book. Like, he had a layer of 3/8 steel, and then he had another layer of 1/2 inch steel, but between those layers it was 9 inches of concrete on the sides. So
anywhere from 6 to 9 inches. It varied depending on where you're looking at it. And on some places he actually doubled up the outside layer of steel.
Wow.
So it was impenetrable by a traditional round.
Wow. Yeah, and it's just so bulky. Yeah, makes so much sense.
But he did that shooting in a even though it was a bulk plant, it was a residential area. I'm not exaggerating here. Maybe 200 to 300 feet away were houses where people lived, and then there was a senior housing project, maybe, no more than 350 feet away.
Oh, wow.
So I just had this vision of one of those tanks exploding and flying, burning through the air and landing on those residences. It would not have been good.
No. It's
luckily he failed at that. But then he got in another fight with a scraper as he was leaving, which if you look at the video, you can see that little altercation.
Right.
Of course, the dozer wins, and then that was Clark Brandstetter in the scraper trying to stop him again. And then he went over back on Main Street in Granby. He went over to the Gamble store, which was a hardware general goods store right on Main Street, and proceeded to destroy that. But before that happened, he overheated to the point where his main coolant hose exploded, and you can see that in the footage they have. Big white plume of steam and smoke comes out from under the dozer.
Right.
And then he proceeds to destroy Gamble's, that store, but he gets stuck, 2/3 of the way back. I think it's a combination of he overheated and just couldn't go anymore, but there was a small crawl space basement there too. But he could have gotten out if he could have run it, but I think it overheated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The guys that took it apart, that disassembled it, they told me the engine block, everything was just white from being too hot, And, I think his targets were people that either had been on the town board, like Gamble's was owned by Casey, and Casey had been on the town board and the planning commission and was there when they made the decisions that Marv didn't agree with. But, Casey's a really good guy and well-liked, and Marv somehow hated him and thought he was a big jerk, but no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And he attacked Mountain Parks Electric because one of the board members had worked there, but he had quit working there by the time he attacked Mountain Parks Electric.
He just had him on the list. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the town hall, because the town, he thought it treated him wrong.
Right.
And the Colorado Savings Bank, a woman that didn't even live in town anymore, worked there, that was on the town board. He went after the newspaper because he thought we were yellow journalists, siding with the town.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to remember, I knew Marv right from when he first moved here. He advertised in the newspaper. We wrote stories about him. He also got involved in political issues up in Grand Lake, where the town tried to bring legalized gambling to the town. Now, we did disagree over that. He was pro-gambling, and we didn't want gambling to come to Grand Lake right there by the national park.
Yeah.
But, we talked about all that. He'd give us letters to the editor. We'd work with him on the letters and stuff. So, it's not like we didn't know each other or were bitter enemies, but...
Well, he did get you on that renting his truck, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I rented his truck, and we had a disagreement over that, but I didn't, I was kind of over a barrel. I just gave in on it.
Yeah, but that just showed you
He
what
was
kind of
kind of
person
that
he
way
was.
with
Yeah.
money.
Yes.
He was pretty thin-skinned when it came to negotiating about money issues.
And plus he's just, just being the losing stuff. Like I was telling my wife about when he was racing the guy on the snowmobile, and the guy outrun him, so he took his snowmobile home and tore it down and tried to figure out why it was faster. It's just that he didn't want to lose. He couldn't take it.
He definitely had that mentality.
Sore loser.
Now,
Yeah.
If you agreed with him on everything, he was your best buddy,
Right.
But as soon as you disagreed with him or had a difference like that, suddenly he'd never talk to you again.
Hmm.
And he was definitely that way about this whole concrete plant deal, because he tried to get people to sign petitions, and a lot of people signed the first petitions he took around town. But then when the project was made better and people saw Marv had an axe to grind, they wouldn't sign the petition the second time around, and Marv would never talk to him again. And these are people that he was, friendly with at one time.
It's crazy.
It was he was very vindictive about stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%.
So how did Marv finally get stopped?
You mean in the dozer? I think it was just overheated, and once it stopped, he was in the dozer, and within like 5 minutes, maybe not even that long, they heard the retort of a round from the dozer, and that was it. Marv had shot himself.
Yeah.
So he killed himself in the dozer.
Did they know by the list he had or the targets he had if there were going to be more, or that was at the end where he got stopped? He couldn't get his treads going. They got stuck.
You're saying, did he have more targets?
Yeah, did he have more targets?
He had more targets. He hated the Catholic Church for some reason. I think I know why, but that was on his list. Ted Wong, the mayor of Granby, he was on the list.
Wow.
There were many other targets. Ted Kellner, his house, he was on the list. And Ted had been a good friend of Marv's. I mean, it just was confounding how he would get crosswise with people. God, I'm trying to remember the other people. But yeah, there were other targets. He had they figured 11 to 12 hours of fuel.
Wow.
In the dozer when it stopped.
I guess why he had Dale say you said he had all that food packed with him in the dozer.
Yeah. Well, he had a couple sandwiches and ammo things, so he was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, sandwiches, ammo, and
Slim
water.
fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one of the things that were a big tip off right away after this thing happened was within 2 days after the rampage, there was a guy that posted a blog. We would call it a blog now, but back then it was just a website, because this was pre-social media prominence. This was 2004. Some guy from Arizona posted a bunch of stuff that was just absolutely wrong, but it took off like wildfire. So he's one of the people that keyed into the Killdozer name, which I didn't invent. The public invented that name, and I just picked it up because, that's interesting.
Yes. Yeah, gets attention.
No doubt.
And but that guy had said that Marv hadn't killed himself, that really the police killed him and planted the firearms in the dozer and to make it look like it was a suicide. But this is the sort of outrageous stuff that started circulating right away about the rampage to make Marv look kind of like a sympathetic figure. And there's no way that that's what happened. I mean, heck, we were there,
They couldn't get in there to do that if they wanted to.
Yeah, they couldn't. And, you know, it's just the mistruths about what led up to this started to circulate right away, and this blog that this guy put out, I think it was called No BS News or something like that. It just started with all kinds of stuff, that was not true. He claims that Marv didn't shoot at anybody, and all he wanted to do was damage people's property. And anyway,
do you think this whole thing come to him when he was looking at that scale model when they had that last meeting about the batch plant?
It's great for you to tune in on that. I think that there's some element of, because how else would, that was the meeting where he definitely realized he wasn't going to win in his fight against the town,
right,
or the neighbor. And just looking at that must have made him think, God, I could just crush this whole place.
Yeah.
And he had said to his lawyer, just after all those hearings, that he's just going to bulldoze the whole town.
Right.
And, everybody dismissed him when he said stuff like that, He did say it a few times, but, maybe that's where his inspiration came from.
Yeah, that's.
I did have two people send me diagrams of armored bulldozers that the Israelis used to destroy settlement towns or towns in near Israel and Palestine. And some of the drawings and designs were very similar to what, not 100% the same, but very similar in their concept. Concrete steel, armored bulldozer, protected driver,
Yeah.
So Marv probably keyed into that kind of a design, maybe through that sort of stuff, although we never found proof of that.
Right.
But people speculated that could have been part of his inspiration as well.
Yeah, definitely could have been.
So what was the atmosphere like in Granby following the rampage days and weeks after this? What was it like?
It was just, people were stunned because honestly, a lot of people, they didn't have any idea that Marv was that angry and that he would do anything like that. And so people were stunned and a little bit mystified as to, why did he do this? Yeah, he didn't get his way with the town, but you know what? This was 3 years after any of that stuff had happened with the town and the dough chest. Most people had forgotten about this dispute,
Yeah.
Most people had just blew it off. Even though Marv had been resistant to stuff the town wanted him to do afterwards, nobody really put two and two together about him going to that extreme. So first, people were stunned. Secondly, a lot of people were extremely bummed out because a lot of people lost a whole lot of money. He destroys your building, and you're in deep trouble. Gambles, they lost a ton of money. The batch plant, he destroyed the whole batch plant, It is a big deal. So the town was in major recovery mode initially. It took us a full year to we rebuilt the newspaper office. We were one of the ones that had good insurance, but not everybody did have good insurance. So some people, it took, like Gambles, it took them 5 years to finally get a building back up there.
Man.
Cody and at Mountain Parks Concrete, they rebuilt a lot of it themselves. They immediately got to work rebuilding it. Because even though the building outside was damaged, a lot of the equipment inside there wasn't. So they were able to make concrete and get to work on rebuilding their building pretty quickly. Then it was just because nobody was killed, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation came up and did a one-day sort of cursory investigation, and then they left and did a very brief report about the incident. The local sheriff's department did, pretty extensive evaluation and examination of it all. If Marv had lived, he would have been charged with attempted murder and vandalism and all that kind of stuff. But, of course, he didn't live, so there was nobody to charge for it. So it was just an investigation of, why did he do it, what really happened, and it kind of stopped.
Yeah. What is it
and
like?
That's what's interesting about the tapes. The tapes, Marv sent the tapes to his brother in South Dakota, and then those tapes were turned over along with the computer hard drive. And it wasn't until 4 months after the rampage that the police released the tapes. So then listening to the tapes, it kind of reignited everybody's fear and anger and worry again, because, you know, he makes some startling allegations in the tapes. Most of his stuff is unreliable. He said a lot of stuff that just wasn't true, or, you know, he was deliberately misinformed to justify his actions.
He was holding a bad grudge.
Yeah, and it was all one-sided too.
Yeah.
It's hard to see what the hell was going on when you're only getting one side of the story.
The first time I listened to that tape, I got the creeps. I want to tell you, it was not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I went for a while trying to find them, because I'm like, I want to hear these tapes, and then I'm listening to them like, wow. It was like, he was out there.
Yeah. So what is Granby like today in 2024?
Granby's a lot different. Yes, the town has been kind of remade after Marv did his, you know, little urban rebuilding project. So all those buildings that were destroyed have been rebuilt. All of them are better than they were. The town hall is huge. It's very nice. There's a new, you know, the library was in the basement of the town hall. There's a big, huge, massive, nice new library. But in the meantime, the town has grown considerably. Its tax revenue has probably increased by 40% since then.
Oh, wow.
The population is up to around more like 2,700. At the time of the rampage, it was right around 2,000. There's been a lot of growth and development in the town. So it's a lot different than it was.
Did the townspeople come together after this event and become closer, do you think?
Oh, yeah. There was a big community fundraising drive that took place in connection with this, and they raised, I can't remember the number, it's in the book, I think over $2 million just from contributions and gifts given to the town, mainly to try to help people who didn't have insurance.
Yeah.
Or who had lost property that was just, they couldn't recoup it. And then there were many government grants that were awarded because of the devastation. And then, you know, like there was a Ladies for Granby that teamed together to do a semi-nude calendar where they raised funds that also went to all the people that were damaged and affected by the rampage.
Well, I have to get
so
all
that
that
was another community effort. So yeah, the town pulled together to try to just get through it. But I have to say the approach has been, because the town has gotten such a black eye because of all the bogus stuff you read online about this, that, you know, people aren't anxious to just immediately start talking about the rampage, because most people take the point of view that's most commonly represented online, which is that the town is mean and cruel, didn't like, you know, newcomers, backstabbers, and, you know, gossiping mongers in the coffee shop out to get poor Marv, and boy, they really screwed Marv. And, you know, I got to tell you, the town board isn't sophisticated enough to launch a campaign against a guy like Marv. And so people just don't bring it up because, you know, they know that most people come with a preconceived notion where they think we're a bunch of, you know, backstabbing rednecks here in Granby.
Yeah. Well,
and I got to tell you, it isn't true.
Yeah, I know Marv's dead now and everything, and I hate to talk about a guy that's dead, but yeah, man, he was just a sore loser. I mean, that's just, in my book, in my opinion, that's all he was. And I hate it for the town of Granby. You know, it's just.
Well, one of the ladies in one of those videos said that looking back now, he kind of done us a favor, because, like he said, everybody got all this new nice stuff and everything's great, but still,
yeah,
it's still bad to go through.
Yeah, I mean, be terrorized like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, think about it. The library district had to do a big bond issue to build that new library.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the taxpayers had to pay for that. You know, it's a part of our property taxes.
Right.
I consider that an indirect cost of the rampage, because although they were going to build a new library, it wasn't going to happen for 6 or 7 years. And they had to do it right away. The town had to borrow a bunch of money to build a new town hall. It was a long process, and there was political fallout after the fact. Ted Wong, the mayor of Granby, he did not get reelected. some of it was related toward people didn't like some of the things he said about Marv after the rampage.
Yeah, that press conference is a little rough.
And the Thompson brothers, who lost a lot and were victimized by Marv, they think the town should have kept the dozer and put it on a pedestal in the town park and charge people to come look at it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all.
No, I don't either.
But they thought that, you know. They still think that.
Yeah, I saw
They're
them say
friends of
that.
mine. We talk about it all the time, but it's like, I don't think so.
They do have a piece of it, I think, right?
They have a knuckle off of it, yeah. A piece of the, they call it a knuckle. It's just one of those round steel things that you attach rope or chain to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
That broke off when he attacked their place.
So the story still gets talked about in Granby today?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's, you know, I sell books here in town, and, you know, they sell out all the time. You know,
Wow.
at the coffee shop, or a friend of mine has a little brewery, and he sells out. He'll sell, you know, 12 books in 2 months, and the grocery store, the hardware store will sell, you know, a box of books every 2 months. I mean, they sell like crazy. It's known. People know about this thing. And after the Whistling Diesel guy came through, the interest was renewed.
Right. It got me, yeah.
Yeah, that's what got Dale into this,
Yeah.
Whistling Diesel, yeah.
Yeah. And then I saw you pop up, and I was like, well, I went to Googling. we gotta find this guy. You know,
Yeah.
he's ground zero right there. That's what we want. I don't want who says or what they think or nothing else. You were on the ground, and you know what happened. You lived it. And way before this, I mean, you were there the whole time. So, you know, from the time you bought the property at the auction, yeah.
Right, and I covered the town meetings where Marv was leading up to it, not knowing that this was going to happen, of course. But so it was interesting. But, you know, this is the kind of a story, you guys, where if I had said I was going to write a novel that was exactly what that book is, and I'd send it to an agent or a publisher, and they would say, this story is too implausible, you know, this is implausible storyline, you know, we don't accept it, you know, and truth is, you know, stranger than fiction.
You can't make that stuff up.
That's true.
You can't.
Man. Well, Patrick, is there anything else you want to add to the story?
Oh, nothing other than just thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it. And, you know, if there's somebody in your town that doesn't say much but seems kind of angry about something, give them a chance to talk. I mean, we did give Marv a chance.
Yeah.
That's as far as it went.
Where can our listeners find your book?
Well, you can go to killdozerbook.com. It's there. That's my little website I have. And then Amazon has it as well. And then you can just ask your local bookstore. If they're with Ingram Publishing, they can get the book too.
Okay. We will definitely put a link to your site and your stuff on our show notes and then our social medias too, so our listeners can have access to that and learn more about it. Because we're going to try to...
I appreciate that, you guys. And if you have any other questions or want to do another follow-up someday, let me know. I'll do it.
That sounds awesome, man.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate you. We know you're super busy and you got stuff going on. And thanks so much for giving us a little bit of your time today.
Thanks, you guys, and stay cool.
All right, man. You too.
Uh-huh.
All right,
Goodbye.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Dale, we want to thank Patrick again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. We appreciate you coming on.
Great guy.
Great guy.
He was. And please check out his book. And also, Dale, they made
It's a documentary.
A documentary movie about this. It's
Yeah.
called Tread.
Yeah, TREAD.
And you can find it on YouTube. And,
Yes, it's on there.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
It's documents a lot of Marv's stuff he had done.
Yeah, there's some real footage in there with the other stuff, you know, so
Yeah.
that you can see the actual thing going down. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a really good documentary. So check it out.
Check that out. Check out the book.
Yeah, very, very good. You read the book twice, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot in there. I mean, it's like we said, you know, Donnie, when we first started looking into this and I first watched it and a little bit of clip here and there, I was like, man, you know, this guy was just pushed too far. But once you get to digging in and taking back a couple layers, there's a lot to this story and a lot that was, I think, just built in this guy's head.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a grudge that just festered up.
Yeah. And he just, like, everywhere he turned, it felt like he was being wronged, and he just thought everybody was, the little town was, you know, had just all come against him in different ways, and anytime he wanted to do something, and he couldn't take it.
But, you know, I didn't hear about this story. And the reason this story didn't get much publicity, because the day after it happened, former President Ronald Reagan passed away.
Right.
So that took over the news
They
outlets.
just kind of pushed this right off the front
It did.
page. Yeah.
So it didn't get much press, much
Right.
news.
And also, before he did this, he recorded like almost 3 hours of audio tape
Yes.
to tell his side of the story. And those can be found on YouTube as well. And
Yeah.
I've listened to that too.
Just
all
search
that.
them. We'll put a link for them in our show notes and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So if you want to, you can dig into this as far as you want to go. And that's what we did. There's a couple other podcasts out there that were saying stuff, but like we said, I've listened to all sides, and then we just went to the source.
Yeah. Patrick was there. He was actually a victim of this rampage.
Yeah. Like you said, he was on the list twice.
Yeah. And he barely got out alive.
Right. While his building was crumbling around him.
Man. But yeah, I can't appreciate Patrick enough for telling his story. And
Yeah. Give
being
him
on
some time.
show.
He's just a busy guy, man.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on. But super nice guy. We appreciate him a whole bunch.
Thank you, sir.
All right, bud. We're going to get out of here, man.
Yeah. Let's roll.
We want everyone to be safe. Please be careful and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the Crack House Chronicles.